Hi, I'm Jason from Davra Networks, and in the next few minutes I'd like to take you through the roles and permissions section within the Connecthing platform. So, I'm initially logged in as an administrator here on the application enabling platform from Connecthing. On the top right we see that I'm logged in as admin. I've created 2 applications just to get started, and we'll see 4 devices. Here we see the 4 sample devices, and I've also uploaded a little bit of data to go with them. What I'd like to do today is create a user, create a role, and assign that role to the user. By doing so, we can gradually build up the permissions that we're assigning to users that we create. That will reveal applications and data and devices, etc., to those users. So starting off, I'll first create a user. Under settings, we have the menu option for users. I've clicked that. Down on the bottom right, we've got the plus symbol to create a new user. And for the particular situation we're dealing with today, I'm going to imagine we've got an array of students, and I'm going to create the first user called student. I've created that user, and we see the notification on the top right. In the middle of the column here, we see the user role, but we have no role for the student yet, so let's go do that. Across the left, we see the menu option for roles. Clicking on that, I get to see along the left-hand side the administrator and operator roles, which already exist, but I wish to add a new one. So I mouse over, add a new role, click there, and the role I wish to create is students. I type it in and click the plus symbol. That role has now been created. That's the students role. I click on the students role, and now we can see the array of features which are applicable to that role. We have the features listed, such as devices and metrics and users, and then the permissions which they have. Can they access them or create more? In this situation, the default is such that no, they have very little permissions to get going. I'm going to assign one more by clicking on the access permission. Here we see it is turned to a tick, and the new users who are applied this role will be able to access the page of applications. I'll just tab over to resources here by clicking on this. That's a separate section within the role definition, and it is the ability to assign access controls individually. More on that later. So I'm delving back to features. At this point, we've created the user student and we've created the role students. So let's go apply the role to the user. I click on users. Under student, we see the column currently for user role, it's none selected. But upon drop down, I can click students, and now that user has been updated. So the user student is in with the role students. To see the effect of this, I'm going to open up a separate browser here and log into the same server as user student, which I just created. And this user will have a very different experience. Upon logging in, we see applications and devices are on the left, and access to the data REST API description. But we don't have the array of left-hand menus that we're familiar with logged in as administrator here. We don't have the rules engine or component toolkit across the left. That is because the user student, as we see defined in their role, only has access permission to devices and applications. Thus, when I move over to the browser as student, I see devices and applications across the left. But interestingly as well, when I go to applications as a student, there are none visible. That is because we take the approach of having the minimal permissions to begin with, and then we increase them gradually. If I look at the applications listing as administrator here, I see there are 2 applications created. How do we then give access for a student to in one of these applications? Well, what we're going to do here is a subsection of the role. We're going to assign an access control list element. We're going to apply a label to the application, and we're also going to apply the label permission at the role level. So I'll take each of these parts and do them. First, we click on Edit the application for water monitoring. This is just a sample application with some data. And on the top right, I see the cog for settings. Upon clicking there, we have the details. And the labels is the most important part here. On the lower half of the modal pop-up, we see the ability to add a label. So I'm going to say that this, for instance, is part of the project for water meters. Upon selection, I see project as part of the key, and then the value, water meter. So this label is the key and value pair. It's the project water meter. Of course, we can declare new keys like classes or other hierarchical structures. And then for the value side, we can apply which of these groupings they pertain to. So I click confirm, and now that label, project water meter, has been applied to the application. Going back to the main menu. Inside the settings and roles, I wish to give a little more access for the student's role. So all the users with the student role will have a little more access to this resource. So I click on resources, down under the student's role, and I wish to click add. At this point, I can say that students should be allowed to view the applications, as I touch the click down there, drop down. The key is going to be project, and the label is going to be water meter that we just assigned. So I click add now, and that sentence appears in under the access control list. We can simply read it as students can view applications with the project water meter. So what did that effect create over for students? I switch over to the other tab. I'm now logged in as the student, and upon refresh, I see the application is now visible. That is because it has the label applied, project water meter, and as a student with the role of students, I have permission to get to there. So this, by gradually increasing the permissions, we can assign activities and applications to individual groups of users. I'm going to do the same thing for devices now. So I'm going to click add. Students can view in the drop down a separate sentiment or a separate statement here. Those for not everything, not every device, but just project water meter. Before I click add, let's see what the student can currently see. I've switched over to the tab. I look at devices and I see no devices. Upon clicking add, now they can see devices which have the project water meter label applied. I'm going to switch over to student, and upon refresh we'll see they still don't have access to any devices because no particular devices have had that label applied yet. I click device under the admin section, user. In the drop down for that particular device, for instance here truck 2, I'm going to edit the labels and apply a label. I click project water meter and confirm. Now that label has been applied to that device. I'm going to click another one just for the sake of the demonstration. Edit labels, add another label, in this case project water meter. We'll note here it's possible to add a new variation if we wished, project gas meters, and that would be a separate grouping, for instance. So now I've applied that particular label to 2 devices. Switching back to the student, I'm going to refresh as if I had logged out and logged back in again, and now the student can see these 2 devices as they sit in the list for device management. Similarly, their ability to see 2 more devices means that they can also see the data from those 2 devices. So at this point, I'll dip into the application that I created earlier, in this case, the water monitoring one, and edit the application. As I'm logged in here as the administrator, I can see lots of data already visible, and in the page level device selection, I can see, upon dropping down, 4 devices for which some have data. But the student is only allowed to see 2 devices. So when I go to the same application as the other user, the student user, I go into the application, and in the drop-down, I only see the 2 devices. So here we can see that by allocating a particular hierarchy or describing a hierarchy, we can segment users according to their roles, we can define the roles, and we can make statements to declare how much permission each of those users or people within that role can get. So by combining the hierarchy with the roles and the statements of the access control list, we can hopefully segment all of our users in the way which suits our business case. Thank you very much.